So Roger Woodcock was a reporter in the Post, yeah.
He was a nice guy, aye.
And what I read about him, well, I met him a couple of times, but when I was drinking, he was drinking the Nag's Head.
Aye.
And this was about the 90s or something, wasn't it? 94, something like that. And
well, at the time, I had come back from the American firm, and I'd even went to all the help places that I had been to in the first place. Not one would help us. I was told it's too cold in Newcastle for you, John. So I thought, well, fuck you, I'll go and appeal to the MP.
About Roger Woodcock?
No, appeal to the MP. This is how I got to Roger Woodcock.
Oh.
And then I read an article on Roger Woodcock, how he had been, like, I think he'd been in care and stuff like that, you know, he had a hell of a life, he had a really hard life.
What about the circumstance of his death though? That was suspicious.
Well, this was the thing, this was what I wanted to know, was how did he die? And they were trying to say he'd had a heart attack or something under the Redruth Bridge.
What the article said that I read was in the Chronicle was that he'd been drinking in the Printer's Pie or somewhere, a journalist pub in Newcastle, and there was no indications that he was suicidal.
No.
And he went home, and the next day he didn't come in. They rang him up and he said he was expecting a plumber.
Right.
Well, and they later found out the plumber wasn't due to turn up. There wasn't a plumber due to turn up. And then sometime later he got found dead in the Tyne. He'd fallen off the swing bridge.
I knew it was one of the bridges. You see, I got told he was found under the bridge. You know the metal one for the where the cars go underneath and the trains go across the top.
The high level bridge.
The high level. I always believed he was found under the high level bridge on the path.
Well, I don't know why he was found, but where they said he jumped, he fell. That's the word they used. Fell from the swing bridge.
Right. See, isn't that how we both got different tales of what happened to him? You've got to wonder.
Well, this is from the Chronicles article about him.
But the Chronicle are a pack of cunts, basically, you know. They fucking are.
So, how does a bloke who's got no suicidal obvious tendencies...
Do you know why Roger was going to help me? Because he knew what was happening. He knew what the system was, and he knew what the world
but I just want people to know the story, because not everybody listening, watching this will know who Roger Woodcock is or how he died.
Well, he was as far as I know, he was a guy who'd kind of grew up in care, and he'd had a really hard life until he got the job as a journalist, you know, and then he wanted to help me because he knew what I was going through. The day before I was to meet him, that was when he was announced dead, and then the following day...
The day before you were supposed to meet him?
Yeah, I was supposed to meet him the following day and take me story, and then I was suddenly fucking turned up deed, didn't he? So I kicked off and I says, you'd have fucking killed him, that's what you'd have done.
So what was the story that you were
Well, the story was, I had been, before I went for the American job, I had been, Barclays were willing to give us 10 grand, it was all just sitting there waiting for to set up my car computer tuning business. It was all...
You're getting a loan off the bank to set up this business?
I had all the keys to every door before I went away. Now when I went away, I had every door slammed in my face and I was told basically to fuck off. So then I pursue the MP and then start reading the papers, and then I read this article about Roger and his life, how hard he'd had it. So I got in touch with him and he felt sorry for us, what was happening. So the next thing,
he was going to interview you.
He was going to interview us, and he was going to ask these places why they weren't helping us. Why were they taking government funding to not help a local person with inventions when they're the ones who are fucking banging on about come to us, come to us, come to us. And basically all these places are set-ups for the government to get your ideas and inventions, because I was told if I have 100, I've got to hand them all over, and I had says no. I says
what?
Inventions.
You got to hand them over to who?
Big Idea Centre at the time, and I had run-ins with everybody, Danny. There was nobody to help us.
Did they have the patents on them?
Well, no, because they were just my inventions in a book, you know.
So they weren't protected by...
They weren't protected by anything, you know, and I didn't need to, because I was trusting, and I trust them still. I trusted them then, but basically they just took the piss, you know. Took me
How does this tie into this car tuning thing you were talking about earlier?
The car computer tuning thing was a business I had set up before I left for the Americas. I had got $2.5 grand loan off Project Northeast, and says I'm going to go and do this American thing first because I'm going to get to travel the world a bit. And, oh yeah, come back. As soon as you've done your stint, come back to us and we'll help you.
What were you doing in America?
I worked in the microchip semiconductor industry.
So what happened to this cartooning thing while you were over there?
Well, I got put on the back boiler.
So this was something separate? You took a break?
Yeah. This was something separate.
And
this was the business, right? The idea of a car computer tuning thing, right? What it was going to be was every second-hand car garage now have computers on their cars. Every garage would have to employ somebody who's got special tools. So the idea was one person going around a multitude of the second-hand car dealers, giving them a printout of the engine's management system, and that was basically the idea. So it meant they didn't have to employ a mechanic or buy all the tools.
Okay, so you got this on hold, you went to America, did something there, and then...
What happened was, when I worked for the American firm, I studied all the books and stuff, you know, so I knew all the machines, and I got to learn pretty quick. But compared to mechanics, and what I knew, it was a piece of piss, you know. It was just like a big Meccano set to me, and I loved the job, you know, like doing the work. And the problem they had with me was I wouldn't be a boss. That was one of them, because I didn't want to be in charge of anything. I was in charge of myself, and I was quite happy doing that. And then I wouldn't lie to Phillips, and I said to the guy at the time, I says, you get the money for lying. I says, you're the #1 in Europe, fuck off and you tell the lies. And he didn't like it, you know.
Well, you're working for them, so you took a job on with them?
Well, I took a job. What happened was in PRI, I'd rubbed up a few people the wrong way, as you can imagine, the Americans. So rather than cutters, they put us in Holland in a prototype site for visionary software, and I fucking was swimming again, you know. They hated it, you know. But anyway, Phillips offered us a job to stay there, but they wanted us to take a 10 grand pay cut, so they got told to get fucked as well, you know.
So why did you just suddenly dump this invention and go to America?
Because it was the idea of travelling the world, and one minute I'm in Singapore, one minute I'm in Thailand, one minute I'm in Holland, one minute I'm in Germany, or where, you know, wherever. I could have went to the Gaza Strip as well before the shit hit the fan, you know, and it was just something, the chance of travelling and having a good income. I mean, I used to give my ex-wife £100 a week for the 2 kids, you know.
And was this doing similar stuff to what the invention was based on?
No, it was far from it. Basically, I was working in a clean room with a suit on and masks on, a bit like the coronavirus. We're going out with the noddy suits on soon. But I just excelled at it because it was just clipping shit together, you know. It was an out. It was so easy. And when I got to Phillips, I was a bit miffed. I mean, it's like the thing that they done to us before they sent us back to work at Phillips. They cut like 1,500 people from it, a staff of 2,500, because the profit margin was down by a quarter. The profit was 250 million fucking pounds, and I was like, you're fucking joking, and you've cut 50. I says, you can fuck yourselves. And I wanted out back then, and I had said I was getting cut from the Americans, but still with a European team, you know. I didn't get on with anybody at the finish because I knew everything I needed to know, and there was none of them could hold a burnt match to us at the finish. And I got on well with Phillips, well, to the extent of them offering us a job, but I invented a machine. Instead of everything in like rack shelving, I come up with cylindrical shelving. So rather than have 2,000 bits in these boxes, I'd come up with these cylindrical shelving. So it went from fucking 2,000 to like 22,000, you know, in the smaller space.
I bet they got the money.
Oh, of course they did. I was in the took us in the invention people, all them people who are getting paid to invent stuff for Phillips, that they were all stumped. They couldn't believe that I'd come up with cylindrical shelving. And these microchip negatives were like a 3-inch square piece of glass, and on the underneath I had this little thing called a pellicle, which had like a skin on, like a film, you know, like a camera kind of thing, you know, and they would crack. Well, it was somebody's job, like they all hated it because they had to inspect these things with this little magic wand by eye, you know. And you can imagine when there's thousands of them, it's a fucking it's picking up the broken smarty job, you know. It's not fun. So I then come up with a machine that could test these pellicles. And the idea was, I was sitting having a cup of coffee with his hands Dom, and they had all the other people. That's it, they kept me, you know. I mean, they had all them at the fucking bottom of the table, and me and Dom up the other end of the fucking room. And they're asking me all these like questions if I've got answers. So anyway, to test these pellicles, these were thinking of coming up with laser ideas and all sorts. And I finished my cup of coffee, and I split the cup and started tapping it, you know. And then I got another cup and started tapping it. I says, can you tell? He says, what? I says, well, listen. Start tapping it. I says, it's resonating a different sound. I says, so in theory, if you put the pellicle to some sort of sound that bounces off it, you're going to get a different reading when it's got a crack in it till you are where it's sealed. The fucking whole table at the other bottom end were like huffing and puffing, and they all got up and they were like slamming the chest, like fucking blah, 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 blah. And this Hans Dom was just pissed and he started laughing. I says, is there something wrong? He says, is there something wrong? He says, you just solved what these fuckers are getting paid for. He says, you know, in a tea break. And I'm like, well, you know, it's just because I'm mechanical, I suppose. But and then, like I say, Phillips offered us a job, because I tell PRI I'd had enough. But I even worked for the next 3 months till they got somebody trained up, and I was training a Dutch kid on the sly to do my job, you know, not to do army job, but obviously to do the bare minimum so you could run the system, you know.
How much did you get for that invention?
Fuck all.
Yeah,
I had loads of fuck all, Danny. I had pocketfuls of fuck all.
Well, the best inventions are the simplest, but...
of course it is.
So how did you... carrying on then, how did you get back to this Roger Woodcock from America?
Well, because not one place would help us. None of them would help us. Every door had been closed.
Where were you this time? Back home?
Back, yeah, I was back in Newcastle after quitting the job for the American firm.
And you'd started up the game where you left off?
That was what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to start up with a car computer tuning thing.
How long was it between going and coming back?
Literally, I was back on, as soon as I got back I was wanting to do it, you know.
But how long were you away for? How many months?
Well, roughly, I worked for them for just under 5 years, I think, you know. I mean, I was away for quite a while.
And this time that wheels got turned and doors got shut, in other words?
Well, doors got shut, but the thing is, the week before, Barclays were offering us 30 grand to buy shares, and the week later, they closed my account down when I was in fucking Holland. So I had to come back. And then I come back and there was this horrible, slimy, fat pig of a man that I had to fucking deal with, who closed my account down, gave us £1,600 back, and then by the time I'd walked with that £1,600 up to Lloyd's, I was on the credit blacklist.
So what happened? I mean, there's this 5 year where you were in America. You just sort of walked away from this invention.
Well, not walked away from it.
No, but you left it. It's cold. It went cold, and something happened.
It didn't go cold as such, Danny, because at the end of the day, still nobody was doing it. There wasn't enough confident people here to have that brainwave that I had, other than Blue Line. And the Blue Line man set up a garage to car computer tune all his own stuff. He knew it was a good idea.
So it got stolen off you in that 5 year period?
Yeah, well, it got taken, you know. But I mean, it's like that other thing. I'd come up with where we could, you know, it was like £100 package to put like a dash camera in, you know, like for taxi drivers to keep them like safe. Fucking police have got them all now.
What, like a dash cam,
like something like, you know, when these cabs, they take a photo of the people who have got in the cab in case they're working themselves.
Oh, right.
So if they're working themselves, they've got a photo of who's got in the cab.
But why did you just leave this invention? You know, just go to America? Did you just?
Because it was a once in a lifetime chance, you know, to get like to get 16 grand salary back then, and then all expenses paid back then. I mean, we're going back 30 years, you know. At the finish, I was on 20.
How did the opportunity come up, and why couldn't it have waited? And that's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of.
Well, how I got the American job. You see, I was so used to, I was working in the winter time. That's why I've got the arthritis in my knees, and you know, I get stiff because I've done 12 years working outside, you know.
Right.
And this job come along through Dean Fiddlework for the pastor here with Christian Fellowship. Dean Fiddlework for the fucking minister. Anyway, he then had said, John, how would you like this job? He says, it's just as a runner kind of thing for this American firm.
Alright, so that's how you got...
So that's how I got into the American job.
And how did you get involved with the pastor?
Because I used to work at another garage that he'd bring the car to, but obviously he got me to do it on the fiddle rather than put it in the garage.
Yeah. I think I've probably met him, I know a couple like that.
Derek, he was called, aye.
So you got involved with him and he pointed you in the direction of America somewhere?
Yeah, aye.
Right.
Well, what happened there was, it was like when they started the night shift, there was a guy who was one of the engineers would come in, but he'd always be pissed. Well, the Americans tended not to work on the night shift, it was just, some of them would work in the fab, like in the clean room, and we'd be passing stuff through to them. Well, this Jimmy would always be pissed, so he goes, oh, it's only cutting, will you do it? Well, he said, I do until you sober up. So I started cutting all the tracks and started passing all the stuff through. And then it was this lad, Geoff, we used to call him. It was Jeff, but it was like with a G instead of a J, you know. So he got called Geoff instead. And he invited us into the clean room and started showing us what they were doing. And I was like, could I like join, like do some of this? Well, what was your job before? And I says, well, I've been a mechanic for the last 12, 13 years. He says, I'm sure you'll be able to like do the job, you know. So I started doing the job with them as well. And then come the end of it, sort of 8 months later, I think it was, that said, would I like to come and try like out for the team? I says, I would love to, you know. So they said at first that we're going to go to France because there was another fab over in France getting started.
What's fab?
The fab. The fab is the clean room for the microchip. So I didn't go to France. I went to Albuquerque instead, and it was great, you know. I mean, you imagine somebody from Newcastle going all the way to Albuquerque.
I don't even know where it is. Where's Albuquerque? New
Mexico, you know, so it's a canny hike. And went down to California and different places. We had a great time, you know. So really it was a chance to see some of the world and, you know, and make good money at the same time, which I'd never had. I mean, I was used to, I mean, fuck me, when I worked for Reg Vardy's Audi VW, I got £5 an hour and they're charging fucking 60, but if you had an Audi, you got charged more for the same fucking oil and the same plugs and the same fucking job. And I got sacked from Audi VW.
105 an hour, everything's also.
Well, I'll tell you now, the mechanics are not getting that. They're not getting close to that. And that was another reason why I wanted more money out of PRI, the American firm. They were giving me something like £16 an hour, but they were then charging 57 for my hours labour. And I said, there's some fucking room in there for me. And then I ended up with 27 grand a year. But then they wanted us to be on salary for the 27 grand a year. And I said, not likely, not when I'm doing 18-hour shifts and working me days off. I says, what, I'm going to get a salary for that? I says, you didn't get a salary for that. And that was the #1 in Europe. God, you need a degree, John. I was like, I haven't got the gumption to sit doing and do a degree, you know. He says, but give us the manual and I'll fucking learn what I need to do and I'll sort it out, you know. But it was a good experience, and the problem is, I come back here thinking I would just take up where I left off. Blacklisted. We got my card revoked in Holland from the bank. So the English card got revoked in Holland. So
what was the first thing you noticed about something not right?
400 quid getting taken from your ING account for no fucking apparent reason. Somebody.
What's ING?
The Ing Bank. It's a Switzerland bank.
Swiss bank account.
Aye. I've even had them phone us years later to say, we thought you would have made more money by now. And I was like, what do you, he says, well, you still got your ING account. And it's like,
who took that?
Your guess is as good as mine. Bank of America took us for 10 grand.
So you got no idea who took 400 quid out of your account?
No, I've got no idea who fucking took 10 grand out of us neither when I worked for the Americans.
So you got ripped off over it when you were in America before you come back?
Aye, 10 grand.
And then again when you come back?
Aye.
So did all this dodgy business start over there?
Started with the right, my other pal who I got in the job, Bob, he got rid of his work phone and when he quit, sold his shares, come back home, paid off the house, got a new phone. First message he got was the no fear eyes and fuck you. That was the first, you know, when it used to be the pixel phones with a like snake, that kind of, well, that was the screen that they had. And his first message was fuck you. He rang me straight away and says, did you do that? I says, how the fuck could I do that? I says, you just walked away from he's walked away from its inventors. So that's who sent him that message, because nobody had the number. So Bob was well paranoid. And I'm like, well, you need to think about it, you know, you've worked for the people who invented all of this. You've got no protection from them, because if you've upset them, 25 years later I made forensic fucking scientists to get the computer checked out, to tell them all to go and get fucked.
So this thing you're going to see Roger Woodcock back, you first noticed there was something odd when you came back to this country, when 400 quid went out your Swiss bank account.
Aye.
But also you'd been ripped off in America before that.
Back to America, 10 grand. Aye.
So it goes back to America?
Aye.
Where did it start there then?
Well, it started when I had put my expenses in. It was like 10 grand expenses, and they said I hadn't paid it, and I had the cheque to prove that I paid it, which then...
You were claiming 10 grand for expenses?
Because it was like flights to Singapore and stuff like that, you know, and you had these cards that you could use that kind of money on.
And they said you hadn't used...
They said I'd robbed the money somehow.
Right. Who was they?
The company, you know.
Which company?
Well, I guess PRI, you know, the Precision Robotics Incorporated. They're now called Brooks Automation. You can check them out.
Right.
You know, they're still viable. I'd like to think they've done that round reticle storage, because I've got another package, like a FedEx envelope, that's somewhere in Cyprus with the hotel manager, and that's every nut and bolt for their machines.
So these people who you had the disagreement with, they took the money out of your account?
Somebody fucked us over. Somebody in PRI, like accountant, fucked us over, you know.
Did you get the money for your expenses?
No. What had happened was, there was when the expenses were being paid in and paid out, the 10 grand went missing somewhere. So I paid another 10 grand to cover it, and then this.
You paid 10 grand to who?
Well, to Bank of America for the expenses.
I thought they were supposed to be paying your expenses.
Well, that's what they were supposed to be doing. But because the cheque hadn't been, they said the cheque had went missing or something like that, so I'd have to do another one. So I'd done a second cheque.
But why were you paying them? They were supposed to be paying you.
Because I'm the one who's got the credit card. I'm the one who's taking care of the bill on the credit card. The company gave you the money, but you've got to put it in, the expenses in first. So I'd have to get my own flights to Singapore and back, there and back. But I've got a gold or a silver America Express card that you just put every bill, everything goes on there. Your food.
So it gets charged to the company?
Yes, aye.
So why did that, where does this 10 grand come in?
It got lost along the way.
But what was it for?
Well, it was for my expenses.
But I thought you said you had a card to cover your expenses.
But that was the bill of the card. So what I had to do was, the bill of the card had to be paid and cleared, and then you'd have that card to use again and do the same again. So you were constantly like doing your...
So they were going to pay the 10 grand on the card?
Yeah, aye.
And it went missing?
It went missing.
So you had to pay it instead?
I got to pay it first, I had to pay it.
But they were disputing it, they were disputing it in any case?
They said I had fucking stole it somehow, you know, and I was like, it was proved to them by the material planner, the Sarah, that they were being a pack of arseholes.
Just to be clear, were they disputing the 10 grand that you were charging them for expenses, or were they disputing the fact that it went missing afterwards?
That it went missing.
So they weren't disputing that you ran up 10 grand legitimately?
No, that was notes. That was, some of them, hang on, some of them had like gold cards, you know, and they use a gold card to pay for the whole night out. You know, they had these gold cards.
So you ran up 10 grand on this card. They said they'd paid it, and that you'd stolen it.
Yes. Right,
got you. And that's where things started to go wrong.
Yeah. It was I was working for Walt again after Singapore, and there were a pack of fuckwits. Basically, I worked out what I was doing was keeping them right, and Tom told us that. He says, you've been brought here to put all their shit right. I says, I've kind of realised that now. So he took us back over to Virginia again, where I helped again on getting them sorted out. And then they tell us I was getting cut from the American team because they didn't like us, because I told them it was fucking straight, you know, and they couldn't stand that. But anyway, tell them straight, got myself into trouble. And then that week the following day I was due to go home, and I told my kids, oh, I'll see you the weekend at your nana's, I'll be home by then. So the day before I was due to leave, they then come and say, oh look John, we need you to stay longer. I says, what do you mean you need us to stay longer? I says, I've already booked to go home. He says, well, it's Thanksgiving. And I was like, and? And he's going, well, it's a big holiday to us. I was like, well, and you should have thought of that before you fucking sent us packing. He says, well, we need you to work that week. I says, well, you can go and fuck yourself, I'm going home. And then he was like on about how I didn't understand the Thanksgiving. And I was like, what do you mean? I says, I do know what Thanksgiving is. He says, well, explain it. I says, it's that time you fucked the Indians over, whereas they should have chopped your heads off and not the fucking turkeys' heads off. I was out there the second day, like.
Was this the same company?
The same company, aye.
And did they ever find out where the 10 grand went?
Nah, it's still.
Was there not an audit or something
like
that?
No, it was down to me. That's me. Like, I owe Bank of America 10 grand as far as they're concerned, which is absolute bullshit.
And then you came over here and found 400 quid missing out your Swiss bank account.
That happened when I was in Holland. My card got taken. The money that I had on my spare card got taken, and then my Barclays visa thing got stopped. They took it up as in Holland. So I had to come back again to say what the fuck was happening with my money. They closed my bank account down, give us my money back, and tell us to fuck off. Basically, that was Barclays.
Well, did they ever tell you who took the money out of your account?
No.
Did you ask them?
Fucking asked them. I was gone fucking pear-shaped.
What did they say? What did they say about where the money went?
Well, it all just fizzled out, you know, and it never went anywhere after that.
Well, if you went up to them and said, look, if 400 quid went out of my bank account, I'd go straight to the bank and I'd say, who's taking this out?
But you see, then to go into their bank, I'd have to go all the way to fucking Switzerland. You know, it's like, oh God, that's not coming doing there now. I mean, it's like, I could get a Bank of America account, but still be in England, but to do anything, I'd have to be in America.
Well, I mean, I know there probably wasn't internet available then, but could you not have phoned them up or something and asked them where they'd gone?
They were fucking hanging up on you at the finish, man. They didn't want to deal with you, they were just going, hello, John Hall, you know, just hung up on us.
So the banks were just not cooperating with you?
That's when I realised the power of PRI. That's when I realised what they were telling us was all true. They told me I'd pay for what I had done by telling them to go and get fucked. I'd already spoilt myself by saying they need the heads chopped off at Thanksgiving. So I was then back with the Dutch, and then I worked for them. And that's what they said. He's knee bar. He says he's until you fucking rail him up. I says, well, of course. You know, I says, who wants to be shit on, you know? I says, you've got to stand up for yourself. So I come back here, like I said, and after going through all the houses for a couple of years, there was an article in the Free Paper, because Roger used to write for the Free Paper.
The Gateshead Post, yeah.
So I contacted him, and he said he would love to do my story. He would love to help us. So I just had to wait though, because he was busy doing other things, you know.
Did he tell you what he was doing?
Not really, just paper stuff, you know. And I just.
What any other stories did he tell you about what he was working on?
Not really, just what you read in the Gateshead paper, you know. But what I read about him, he seemed a genuine guy, and that's what I was interested in, you know. And like I say, the day before I was due to see him, I find out he's dead, you know. Yeah. So I start asking why what's happened. Oh, he's been found under the high level bridge, you know, dead. And they were trying to tell us maybe he'd had a stroke or something, or a heart attack and things like that, they were saying, you know. And you've got a totally different story. Well,
I'm telling you what was in the Chronicle.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I've run them and been told that. You know,
I sent you the article.
I'll have read it, but I'll forget, you know, Danny, that's the other problem. I have a memory like a sieve. But that's the thing. Roger was there, he was there for us, he was going to help us, and what he said was, it's a disgrace what's going on after I started telling them stuff. Because I was getting my ideas robbed off us, and they were fucking, like Gen Gans. Does that look familiar? Watching fucking Channel 4 News or something like that. And they'd come up with this invention that they were trying to show you on the telly. She says, that's fucking your design. I was going, well, that's how easy it is for somebody to take your invention off you.
Well, with painting, anybody can do it.
Oh, aye. Well, it's like this little thing. This was the size I was going to keep them at.
Alright, right.
Vertical wind turbine. But like, for your precipice, you know, like on your roof. Little triangle.
That's clever.
Oh, I'm full of mad dog shit.
So what? How the invention over here that you left? This all tied. How did this tie in with PRI and the banks?
Well, it didn't really, because that was a separate entity, you know. Me giving them the $2,500 back for me car computer tuning company. I was expecting to come back, get me $2,500 back, and go to see John and put a deposit on a 10 grand machine. Fuck off! I could just gone. Every door shut. And like Jill Reid, she was the one who was now the top person of Project Northeast, told us it's too cold to help you.
So are you saying that these been leaned on as well as the banks by this PRI?
Well, they'd all been told, haven't they?
That's what I'm saying. So well, that's the common thread.
Well, that's how I realised only a few people pull all the strings. Because PRI warned us what strings they pull. They were like, we tell government what to fucking do, man. I was like, you don't tell government what to do. The people tell government what to do.
And what's this PRI now?
Brooks Automation now.
And that's got the power to influence banks and that. And
well, if your profit level is still £250 million and you're down by a quarter and you're willing to let most of the staff go to keep money, I mean, you were buying $11 shares and selling them at 50, man. It was all fucking insider trading and that going on, man. It was a massive con. And then they had the Y2K thing going around, if you remember that. Mm-hmm. Well, that was from the semiconductor industry as well. That was from the people like seeing who built all the software, talking about how these computers would just like blow up, you know, when they went back to 0, 0, 0. And that's as Mark says, don't believe the hype. And then the next thing you hear, that record what was massive, don't believe the hype. Which was a few years later kind of thing. But it took us back to that time when Mark had said, because I didn't want to fly home with him having scaremongering everybody, you know, like about the planes falling out the fucking sky and God knows what. And that was Mark Gonnier, he was called. He was a great lad, you know. Got on well with him, but he knew his like I was a bad news, you know. When I got there, in the finish, he was defending us, and Salim spoiled it for us, you know. But little did I know, there's another thing going wrong behind my back, and I didn't find out till I went to Greece. And when I went to Greece, I fucking found out what had been being said behind my back. And I feel like weird even mentioning it, you know, because it's such a weird thing. But I can tell you, you know, I can carry on talking if you want.
I'm just trying to keep it coherent, because there's this councillor that comes in somewhere as well in relation to Roger Woodcock, isn't he? Or
Peter Arnold.
Where's he fit in?
Well, because after Roger died, the next thing was I wasn't getting anywhere with Nick Brown. So
he was a councillor. He was the leader of the council at the time, was he?
Well, he was the leader of the North East. He still is, you know. He's been in that chair for 60 years now, you know. Safe seat, you know. The North East is Labour, so he's got a safe seat. But anyway, what Peter was trying to tell us, the Lib Dem, because I thought I'll go on with another party if Nick Brown's me nemesis, you know, if that's what's happening. So I went with Peter and them, and Peter assured us that they would get to the bottom of what had been going on.
Who was Peter?
Peter Arnold. He was the sheriff for a while, and then he was the mayor for a couple of terms.
Newcastle,
aye. Lib Dem, he was the Lib Dem leader for a while. So he was going to do all this for us and do all that for us. And then as soon as I helped campaign, I was doing low work. I was running all the rough parts, like telling old pals, give them a chance and all that, you know. So the one.
Yeah, I remember.
Aye, Now, the first time I ring to speak to Peter, I go to the main office. It's all white leather. It's a massive it's like knocking out all these fucking walls, and that's his office, covered with leather suites and stuff like that. It's really posh. So I says to Peter, right, where do we start? He says, I've got some disappointing news for you, John. He says, just because we've won the council, Nick Brown's still in charge of Newcastle, so we can't help you. I was going to rip his fucking head off. But I obviously realised that's the wrong thing to do as well, you know.
And you told him the same as what you told Roger Woodcock?
Well, told him that I wasn't getting any help off the system, you know, off the people who have been put in place to help you. There's a list as long as my arm, like of N-Trusts and Project North East.
Did you tell him the other stuff about the banks and that?
He knew it all, he knew everything what had gone on. And
then he knew Roger Woodcock had died as well on top of that?
He knew all that as well, aye. He knew everything, aye. And that's another reason he went to Parliament, apparently, and he come back and he says, I've got some bad news for you, John. Parliament are calling you economic disaster. Economic disaster. Economic disaster, because I wouldn't fucking tell lies. And I'll still not tell fucking lies, Danny.